the place that doesn't exist. For decades, the United States government insisted this place did not exist. No signs, no public records, no admission, just an empty stretch of Nevada desert on the map. And yet, everyone knew its name, Area 51, a location so secret that even acknowledging it was once considered a threat to national security. A base so classified that pilots flying overhead were warned never to look down. A facility surrounded by miles of restricted airspace, guarded by armed patrols with orders to shoot trespassers on sight.
Why?
If it was only a testing ground for aircraft, why hide it so aggressively? If nothing extraordinary was happening there, why erase it from history? And if the government truly had nothing to conceal, why did it lie for more than half a century? The story of Area 51 is not just about aliens. It is about secrecy,
Power.
and how much truth the government believes its people can handle. The official story begins in the early 1950s. The Cold War had turned the world into a chessboard of paranoia. The United States and the Soviet Union were locked in a silent war of intelligence, surveillance, and fear. Whoever could see the enemy first would survive. America needed a place to test aircraft that did not officially exist. Remote, invisible, unreachable. That place was Groom Lake, a dried salt lake bed deep inside Nevada, surrounded by mountains, far from cities, highways, and prying eyes.
Perfect for secrets.
Engineers from Lockheed Martin arrived under strict secrecy. They were building something revolutionary, the U-2 spy plane, an aircraft capable of flying higher than any fighter jet, higher than Soviet radar could track. Or so they hoped. Test flights began in total silence. No public announcements. No news coverage. When civilians nearby reported strange lights in the sky, the Air Force offered a simple explanation: weather balloons. That lie would become a tradition. As years passed, the technology being tested at Groom Lake became more advanced and more bizarre. Pilots described aircraft that could accelerate instantly, turn at impossible angles, and fly without visible propulsion. Locals reported objects hovering silently, then vanishing in seconds. The government responded the same way every time: denial. No base. No tests. No sightings. But the lies were stacking up. By the 1960s, commercial pilots were seeing unidentified objects on radar, objects flying far beyond known human capabilities. Military radar operators saw the same things. And when questions were asked, they were told to forget what they had seen.
Some did.
Others didn't. Then came the whispers. Workers who signed lifetime non-disclosure agreements. Scientists who vanished from public life. Pilots who were warned that talking would destroy their careers, or worse. And behind all of it, Area 51 kept expanding. New runways appeared overnight. Hangars large enough to hide entire city blocks were built underground. Flights with no flight numbers arrived weekly, carrying personnel who officially did not exist. If Area 51 was only about aircraft testing, why did it need its own private airline? Why were employees blindfolded during transport? Why were deaths linked to toxic exposure buried in sealed court documents? In 1989, everything changed. A man named Bob Lazar went public. He claimed he worked inside Area 51, not on aircraft, but on something far more shocking. According to Lazar, the U.S. government was in possession of non-human craft. Not prototypes. Not experimental jets. Alien technology. He described flying discs, powered by an element unknown to science at the time. He spoke about gravity manipulation. He explained security levels that separated workers so no one could see the full picture. The government reacted instantly. They erased him. His employment records vanished. His academic history disappeared. Officials said he was lying, yet could never explain how he knew details that were later confirmed. Runway layouts, test schedules, security procedures, coincidence or damage control. From that moment on, Area 51 was no longer just a military mystery. It became a symbol of how much the government might be hiding, a symbol of how reality could be far stranger than we are told, a symbol of a truth locked behind barbed wire and armed guards. And the most unsettling question of all began to echo. If Area 51 was hiding alien technology, where did it come from? Because Area 51 was not the beginning. It was the warehouse. The real story started somewhere else, and it started with a crash. Roswell, the crash that changed everything. In the summer of 1947, something fell from the sky. Not a meteor, not a weather balloon, not an aircraft known to science. It crashed into the desert near Roswell, New Mexico. At first, the U.S. Army Air Forces did something extraordinary. They told the truth. A press release went out to newspapers across the country. It stated clearly and without hesitation that the military had recovered a flying disc. The headline exploded. Radio stations repeated it. Newspapers printed it. America froze. Because this was not coming from a conspiracy theorist. It was coming from the United States military. And then, within hours, the story changed. The flying disc became a weather balloon. The debris became rubber and foil. Witnesses were told they were mistaken, and the government learned a lesson it would never forget. Never admit first. The debris field told a different story. Rancher Mac Brazel described material that could not be cut, burned, or bent. Thin metal that snapped back into shape no matter how much pressure was applied. Symbols etched into fragments, symbols that looked nothing like any human language. Military trucks arrived almost immediately. Roads were blocked. Armed guards sealed the area. Debris was loaded under heavy security and flown away. Where did it go? Witnesses would later say it was sent to Wright Field in Ohio, and then somewhere else. Somewhere more secure. Somewhere that would later be known as Area 51. The strangest part wasn't the wreckage. It was what was found nearby. Multiple witnesses, including military personnel, later claimed bodies were recovered from the crash site.
Small.
Humanoid. Not human. These accounts came from people who had nothing to gain and everything to lose. Nurses. Intelligence officers. Morticians. Air Force insiders. They all described the same thing. Beings that were biological but not earthly. The government didn't just deny these claims. They buried them. Witnesses were threatened. Careers were destroyed. Families were warned to stay silent. Some people recanted publicly, then admitted privately they had been forced. Roswell was erased.
But the truth leaked anyway.
If Roswell was nothing more than a balloon, why classify the files for decades? If no bodies were recovered, why were autopsy reports sealed? If it was a simple mistake, why did the government rewrite history multiple times? First it was a flying disc, then a weather balloon, then a Project Mogul balloon, then experimental equipment. Each explanation arrived only after the previous one collapsed. That's not transparency. That's panic. Here's what matters most. Roswell happened in 1947, and just a few years later, Area 51 was born. Coincidence? Or consequence? Suddenly, the U.S. military needed a place to analyze technology that did not originate on Earth. a location isolated enough to hide breakthroughs that would change physics itself. Gravity control, energy systems without fuel, materials science beyond human limits, technologies that, if revealed, would rewrite history. Area 51 wasn't built to test planes. It was built to understand something else. Former intelligence officials have hinted at classified programs dedicated to reverse engineering. Not inventing. Reverse engineering. You don't reverse engineer something you created yourself. You reverse engineer something you don't understand. Something recovered. Something not made by human hands. Over time, rumors spread of multiple crash recoveries, not just Roswell. New Mexico, Arizona, Nevada, even overseas. Craft that failed. Craft that were shot down. Craft that landed and didn't leave. Each one allegedly transferred to black sites. And all roads led to Area 51. But the secrecy didn't stop with technology. It extended to people. Scientists brought in under false pretenses. Engineers compartmentalized so no one could see the whole picture. Workers monitored, surveilled, and silenced. Those who asked too many questions were removed. Those who talked were erased. And those who understood too much were never heard from again. The most disturbing implication is this. If the government has been studying non-human technology since 1947, then they've known for nearly 80 years that we are not alone. Which raises an even darker question. If they know, why won't they tell us? Is it fear of public panic or fear of losing control? Because the moment the truth is admitted, everything changes. Religion, science, politics, human identity itself. And the government has never liked sharing power. Roswell wasn't a mistake. It was the first crack in the wall. Area 51 became the vault where the truth was locked away. But secrets don't stay buried forever. And soon, people on the inside would start talking. Five if they leave, the possibility N01 talks about. Most theories assume one outcome: contact, arrival, revelation. But there is a quieter possibility, one that receives almost no attention. What if they don't arrive? What if they leave? The assumption of permanence. Human thinking is shaped by ownership. If something appears, we assume it stays. If someone watches, we assume they will eventually speak. But observation does not imply commitment, and attention does not guarantee intervention. The closed file scenario. Advanced intelligence may operate on efficiency. When evaluation ends, so does observation. No farewell, no explanation, no warning, just absence. To humanity, it would look like nothing happened until we realized something stopped happening. What disappearance would look like. No dramatic exit. Just patterns fading. Fewer sightings. No interference near weapons. Silence in places once active. Governments would notice first. Then militaries. Then researchers. The public might never know. Why this would be more terrifying than contact. Contact implies interest. Departure implies conclusion. And conclusions can be negative. It would mean evaluation ended. Outcomes were determined. Further monitoring was unnecessary, not because we succeeded, but because we no longer mattered. Historical precedent. Humanity has done this before. Anthropologists stopped studying collapsed societies. Wildlife researchers abandon extinct species. Interest ends when variables disappear. Area 51 and the fear of silence. Some insiders believe the greatest fear is not invasion. It is abandonment. If unidentified activity stopped entirely, it would suggest something changed, either in them or in us. What would trigger departure? Possibilities include self-destructive escalation, environmental collapse past recovery, technological misuse without restraint, a loss of long-term survivability. In that scenario, intervention becomes pointless. The loneliest outcome: humanity would continue believing it was alone, unaware it had been observed, unaware it had been evaluated, unaware it had been dismissed. Why this is never discussed? Because it removes hope. It suggests meaning is conditional, that attention must be earned, and that failure does not come with judgment. It comes with silence. The subtle warning: observation without contact is mercy. Departure without notice is indifference. One implies possibility. The other implies finality. The most haunting thought: what if some ancient civilizations experienced this? What if their gods did not ascend, but withdrew, leaving myths behind as echoes of attention once given? Area 51's unanswered question. Not who are they,
But
are they still watching? Because as long as observation continues, so does opportunity. The moment of decision. What could force the endgame? Waiting does not last forever. Observation does not continue without limits. Every system, no matter how advanced, operates with thresholds, points beyond which patience becomes pointless. If Area 51 represents humanity's attempt to understand them, this part confronts the moment when they may decide something about us. The myth of endless tolerance. We often assume advanced intelligence would be infinitely patient. That assumption is emotional, not logical. Patience exists for a purpose. When the purpose is fulfilled, patience ends. What an endgame really means. Endgame does not mean destruction. It does not mean invasion. It means resolution. A final shift in approach. Contact, withdrawal, containment, or non-interference forever. Any of these would end the waiting phase. The first trigger: irreversible technology. Certain technologies cannot be undone. Once released, they reshape civilization permanently. Examples include fully autonomous weapons, self-replicating artificial intelligence, planet-scale environmental damage, weaponized space infrastructure. Once these systems pass a point of no return, evaluation ends. The outcome is locked. Why AI may matter more than nukes. Nuclear weapons threaten life. Artificial intelligence threatens control. An AI that evolves beyond human oversight represents a new intelligence, born unstable. From an external perspective, that's not progress. It's contamination. This may be one of the most closely watched developments on Earth. The second trigger: unified hostility. If humanity were to unite, not in peace, but in aggression, that would be decisive. A species that overcomes division only to dominate others is dangerous at scale. Unity alone is not virtue. Intent matters. The third trigger: open hostility toward the unknown. If humanity attempts to attack what it does not understand, that reveals a defining trait: fear-driven aggression. From a watcher's perspective, that signals immaturity. Contact under those conditions becomes impossible. The fourth trigger, global acceptance without panic. This is the hopeful path. If humanity demonstrates calm curiosity, if uncertainty does not collapse societies, if cooperation replaces competition, that may signal readiness, not for technology transfer, but for acknowledgement. Area 51 and decision modeling. Within classified programs, scenario modeling likely exists. What happens if contact occurs tomorrow? What happens if sightings increase tenfold? What happens if undeniable proof leaks? These models aren't about defense. They're about behavior. How we respond. The silent countdown. There may be no clock we can see, no date, no prophecy, just accumulation. Each choice nudges probability. Each generation tilts direction. Why this isn't talked about? Because it reframes power. It suggests humanity is not the final authority over its destiny. That accountability exists beyond Earth. That progress has consequences beyond borders. The hardest possibility. The endgame may not be triggered by catastrophe. It may be triggered by success. Reaching space. Expanding beyond Earth. Carrying our behavior with us. At that point, observation becomes intervention or prevention. The last warning signal. Before any resolution, there may be signs. Increased activity. Closer encounters. Clearer demonstrations. Not communication. Calibration. What Area 51 can't control. It cannot control timing. It cannot control intent. It can only observe and prepare humanity for outcomes it cannot announce. The truth buried under secrecy. The endgame is not coming to us. We are moving toward it. Every decision accelerates or delays it. And when the moment arrives, there will be no debate, only consequence. If contact happens, how it would really begin. Forget the movies. Contact will not begin with a landing. It will not begin with a broadcast. And it will not begin with a single undeniable moment. Because sudden revelation creates shock. And shock creates instability. If contact happens, it will begin the same way everything else has. Quietly. Contact does not mean introduction. The biggest misconception is that contact equals communication. It doesn't. Contact means acknowledgement, recognition without explanation, presence without interaction. And this has already happened many times. We simply refuse to label it as such. The first stage. Undeniable consistency. The opening phase would not be dramatic. It would be repetitive. Objects appearing in controlled airspace. Recorded by multiple systems. Observed by trained professionals. Confirmed by adversaries and allies alike. Not once. Repeatedly. Consistency removes doubt faster than spectacle. Why this matters. Governments can dismiss anomalies. They cannot dismiss patterns. Patterns force admission without requiring confession. This is the safest path to truth. The second stage, shared uncertainty. The next phase would involve something unprecedented. Not answers, but public acknowledgement of ignorance.
Statements like,
"We don't know what this is. It does not belong to any known nation. We are investigating." This may sound weak, but it is stabilizing. It creates a shared human position. Not American, not Russian, not Chinese.
Human.
Why Area 51 would step back. At this stage, secrecy becomes liability. Centralized control creates suspicion. Distributed transparency creates trust. Area 51's role would shift from containment to coordination. Behind the scenes, never center stage. The third stage, normalization. This is the most important and longest phase. Sightings become routine. Language softens. Fear declines. Interest replaces panic. Children grow up knowing something unexplained exists. And nothing terrible happens. That matters. Why there will be no hello. A greeting assumes equality. Equality requires understanding. Understanding does not exist yet. Any advanced intelligence would recognize this. So instead of words, the message would be, you are not alone, and you are not in danger. Silence can carry reassurance. The fourth stage, indirect communication. Communication does not require language. It requires response. Changes in behavior. Adjusted proximity. Modified patterns. These are signals. We already interpret them unconsciously. Why religion and governments survive. Contrary to fear, belief systems would adapt. They always do. Power structures would resist, but not collapse. Gradual truth preserves continuity. Sudden truth destroys it. This is not compassion. It is strategy. The most unexpected result. Contact would not unite humanity instantly, but it would change perspective. Borders would feel smaller. Conflicts would feel trivial. Time would feel deeper. Why this is taking so long? Because the outcome must be irreversible. Once contact is acknowledged, there is no return to ignorance. Waiting ensures stability. The final reality. If contact happens, it will feel less like invasion and more like adolescence ending. Area 51 will not announce it. History will simply mark the moment when humanity stopped asking if it was alone and started asking what kind of civilization it wants to be. Disclosure without disclosure. How the truth is being fed slowly. Disclosure is not a confession. It is a conditioning process. And it has been happening for years, quietly, deliberately, and without a single defining announcement. Why full disclosure is a risk. Truth is destabilizing when delivered faster than societies can absorb it. Governments learned this the hard way during past revelations, wars, surveillance programs, covert experiments. Alien intelligence would eclipse all of them. So instead of revelation, they chose acclimatization. The language shift. Words changed first. Flying saucers became UFOs. UFOs became UAPs. Extraterrestrial became non-human intelligence. Each shift removes emotion. Each shift adds legitimacy. Language is how reality is softened before it is accepted. The role of official confusion. Notice what leaders now say. Not denial, not confirmation, but uncertainty. We don't know. We can't explain it. It's not ours. This is intentional. Uncertainty invites curiosity, not panic. Why whistleblowers are allowed now. Decades ago, whistleblowers were ridiculed. Now they are invited to testify. Not because secrets vanished, but because timing changed. Controlled leaks test public reaction. Every interview is monitored. Every comment analyzed. Disclosure is being rehearsed. Area 51 as a symbolic sacrifice. Area 51 no longer hides its existence. Satellite images are public. Its name is mainstream. It has become a decoy. By focusing attention on one place, the larger system remains unseen. Entertainment as preparation. Films,
Series. Games.
documentaries. They normalize the idea of non-human intelligence. Fear fades through familiarity. Fiction rehearses acceptance. This is not coincidence. Why nothing is ever confirmed. Confirmation ends discussion. Ambiguity sustains control. As long as truth exists in the space between belief and denial, institutions retain authority. The generational strategy. Older generations were taught to fear the unknown. Younger generations are taught to question it. Disclosure is generational. By the time truth is undeniable, it will feel obvious. The final stage of soft disclosure. The last step is boredom. When sightings no longer shock. When hearings feel routine. When mystery becomes background noise. At that point, truth can appear without resistance. Why this protects humanity? Shock fractures societies. Gradual truth reshapes them. Area 51's real mission may not be secrecy, but pacing. The most ironic outcome. When disclosure finally happens, many will say, "We already knew." And they will be right, because the truth was never hidden. It was diluted. Separating signal from noise. What's likely true versus what's myth? When secrecy lasts decades, myths grow like shadows. Not because people are foolish, but because silence invites imagination. Area 51 has become a battlefield between fact and fantasy. To understand the truth, we must do something difficult. We must discard what feels exciting and focus on what behaves consistently. Myth 1. Area 51 is full of aliens walking around. This is the easiest story to dismiss, and conveniently the most popular.
Why?
Because extreme claims discredit moderate truths. There is no credible evidence of living alien beings freely moving inside the base. No verified footage. No medical documentation. No consistent eyewitness accounts. If non-human entities were present, they would be treated as the most classified biological discovery in history, not paraded. Likely truth: biological materials, not biological visitors. More credible sources point toward something subtler. Recovered biological remnants. Tissue samples. Non-human organic matter. Possibly deceased entities from crash recoveries. This aligns with whistleblower language. They never say aliens working with humans. They say non-human biological material. That wording matters. Myth 2. Area 51 is just about alien craft. This myth underestimates the facility. Area 51 is not a museum. It is a test environment. Even if alien craft were once studied there, they would represent only a fraction of the activity. The base exists to answer one question. How do we survive the future? Likely truth: advanced human technology testing. Area 51's primary visible role has always been experimental aircraft.
Stealth bombers.
Hypersonic drones. Electronic warfare platforms. Some sightings attributed to UFOs were almost certainly human-made. But here's the key detail. Many of those technologies appeared suddenly, without clear developmental history, as if inspired rather than invented. Myth 3. The government knows everything. This myth gives authorities too much credit. Governments are not omniscient. They are reactive. If the phenomenon were fully understood, there would be no hesitation, no confusion, no contradictory statements. Instead, we see uncertainty, hesitation, carefully chosen words. Likely truth. They know less than we think, and more than they admit. The most consistent pattern suggests partial understanding. They know something exists. They know it's not human. They do not fully understand its origin, purpose, or limits. And that uncertainty is dangerous, because uncertainty cannot be controlled. Myth 4. Disclosure will happen all at once. Movies taught us this. A press conference, a dramatic reveal, a single moment that changes everything. Reality does not work that way. Likely truth. Disclosure is a process, not an event. It has already started. Official acknowledgments of UAPs. Military pilots speaking openly. Congressional hearings without ridicule. This is disclosure through normalization, not shock. Myth 5. Area 51 is the center of everything. Area 51 is important, but it is not alone. Likely truth. IT is one node in a global network. Other facilities exist. Underground sites. Foreign counterparts. Joint research locations. Area 51 is symbolic, not singular. It is the name we know, not the whole story. Why the myths matter. Myths are useful. They protect the truth by making it unbelievable. When people laugh at extremes, they ignore the middle ground. And the middle ground is where the real story lives. Area 51 does not house science fiction. It houses unanswered questions. And unanswered questions are far more unsettling. The Watchers. Evidence of observation, not contact. If intelligence exists beyond Earth, its behavior is not aggressive. It is patient, and patience is not random. For over 70 years, reports linked to Area 51 and similar facilities show the same disturbing pattern. Objects appear. They maneuver with intent. They demonstrate superiority. Then they withdraw. No pursuit. No escalation. No communication. That pattern alone eliminates many assumptions. Why invasion makes no sense. An advanced civilization capable of crossing interstellar distances would not need secrecy. If conquest were the goal, it would already be over. There would be no hesitation, no lights in the sky, no half reveals. History shows us something important. Superior powers do not announce themselves through ambiguity. They dominate openly, which means whatever is interacting with us is not here to conquer. Observation is a choice. Observation requires restraint. It means resisting the ability to interfere. And restraint implies rules. Rules imply ethics, or at least protocols. That alone is unsettling, because it means someone is following a plan. The long view. Satellite-era thinking limits our understanding. We assume observation began recently, but ancient records suggest otherwise. Cave paintings, medieval manuscripts, indigenous oral histories, descriptions of glowing beings, objects descending from the sky, teachers who arrived and vanished. These accounts are separated by geography, but unified by behavior. Appear, observe,
Leave.
why we only notice them now. Technology changed us.
Radar.
Infrared, satellites, nuclear signatures. We didn't become visible because we evolved. We became visible because we became dangerous. The nuclear correlation. After 1945, sightings exploded. Missile silos experienced shutdowns. Warheads were disabled mid-test. Launch systems malfunctioned after sightings. No explosions. No warnings. Just control. That sends a message without words. We are watching your weapons. Area 51 as a response, not a cause. Area 51 did not attract them. They attracted Area 51. The base became a monitoring center, not just of technology, but of intent. Every unidentified object was analyzed not for what it was, but for what it did. And what it consistently did was avoid harm. The uncomfortable realization. Predators attack. Observers study. Teachers wait. And guardians intervene only at thresholds. The question nobody wants asked. If we are being observed, who decided we were worth watching? Why this terrifies leaders? Because observation means evaluation. And evaluation means judgment. Not of governments, of species. Area 51's deepest fear may not be invasion. It may be failure. The last secret, what Area 51 may still be hiding. Every secret that survives this long protects something bigger. Not a single fact, not a single object, but a truth so destabilizing that even partial disclosure feels dangerous. According to insiders, Area 51's most sensitive projects are not about craft, not about biology, not even about non-human intelligence itself. They are about humanity's limits. One persistent claim suggests that the most classified research at Area 51 focuses on consciousness, not psychology. Consciousness as a fundamental force. Scientists allegedly discovered that some unidentified craft respond not just to thought, but to awareness. Presence, intent. This suggests something radical, that consciousness is not produced by the brain, but accessed through it. If true, then non-human intelligence may not be more advanced because of better machines, but because of deeper understanding of reality itself. Area 51 researchers reportedly explored whether human consciousness could interact with these systems, not control, resonate. Early experiments allegedly produced disturbing results. Heightened perception, time distortion, memory anomalies. Participants described feeling disconnected from linear time, as if past, present, and future blurred together. These experiments were halted, not because they failed, but because they worked too well. Another deeply buried theory suggests that reality itself may be layered, that what humans perceive as the physical universe is only one slice of a much larger structure. Non-human intelligence may not travel here. They may tune in. If that is true, then Area 51 is not guarding a doorway. It is guarding a method, a way of accessing other layers of reality. This explains why secrecy is absolute, because this knowledge doesn't just change science. It changes existence. Imagine a world where consciousness can influence technology directly, where distance becomes irrelevant, where reality is not fixed, but interactive. This would mean humanity is not powerless, just undeveloped. Some insiders believe the final secret of Area 51 is not alien technology. It's human potential. That non-human intelligence isn't here to conquer, or save, or destroy, but to observe a transition. A species on the edge of realizing that reality is far larger than it believed. Why hasn't this been revealed? Because it dismantles every hierarchy, political power, economic systems, social control. Fear becomes obsolete. And fear is how control is maintained. If people understood their own potential, Area 51 would no longer matter. Governments would no longer matter in the same way. The rules would change. This may be why disclosure feels slow, why truth leaks instead of explodes, why certainty is avoided. Because the last secret is not something that can be locked in a vault. It's something that spreads. Area 51 may still exist. Guards may still patrol. Files may still be sealed. But the most dangerous truth can no longer be contained. The universe may not be waiting for us to be visited. It may be waiting for us to wake up. And when that happens, Area 51 will no longer be a mystery. It will be a footnote. Timeline reconstruction. What likely happened, step by step. When official records are incomplete, timelines must be reconstructed. Not from one source, but from patterns,
Leaks.
behavior, silence. And when those pieces are arranged carefully, a clearer picture begins to form. Phase 1. Discovery, 1930s, 1940s. The first encounters were not public. They were accidental. Unidentified objects detected during early radar development. Pilots reporting lights that moved faster than anything known. Then came the crashes. Not one, multiple. The most famous in 1947, but likely not the first. Recovered materials defied analysis. Metals with no known origin. Properties impossible to replicate. The military realized something profound. Humanity was not alone. Phase 2. Containment, late 1940s, 1950s. The response was immediate. Secrecy. Information was compartmentalized. Witnesses silenced. Narratives rewritten. Area 51 was established, not as a starting point, but as a consolidation site. A place to move what had already been found. The Cold War provided perfect cover. Anything strange could be blamed on espionage or experimental aircraft. Phase 3. Reverse engineering, 1950s, 1970s. This period was marked by frustration. The technology was real, but incomprehensible. Scientists understood the effects, but not the principles. Attempts to replicate propulsion failed. Power systems couldn't be activated. Materials resisted analysis. Progress was slow, but even partial understanding produced breakthroughs.
Stealth.
Advanced avionics. Materials science. The world changed quietly. Phase 4. Realization, 1970s, 1990s. This is when the narrative shifted internally. Researchers began to understand that the phenomenon wasn't just technological. It was systemic. The craft weren't isolated machines. They were part of a larger intelligence. Possibly ongoing. Possibly observing. Area 51 became less about engineering and more about interpretation. Phase 5. Leakage, 1990s, 2010s. Information pressure increased. Whistleblowers emerged. Civilian sightings multiplied. Technology spread too far to remain hidden. The internet changed everything. Ridicule stopped working. The government adapted. Deny less. Admit ambiguity. Control language. Phase 6. Conditioning, 2010s, present. This is where we are now. Official acknowledgement without explanation. Disclosure without conclusions. Truth presented as mystery. The public is being prepared, not for shock, but for adjustment. This timeline doesn't require believing every rumor. It only requires recognizing behavior. And behavior suggests one thing clearly. Area 51 was never about hiding if something exists. It was about delaying when the world accepts it. Ancient connections. Did human history intersect with them before? If non-human intelligence is present today, then the most dangerous assumption is that this is new, because history tells a very different story. Long before Area 51, long before radar, long before aircraft, humanity was already looking up and describing the same things. Ancient civilizations across the world recorded encounters with beings descending from the sky. Not metaphorically, literally. Flying vehicles, blinding lights, thunder without storms, and figures that were not human. In ancient Mesopotamia, texts described the Anunnaki, beings who came from the heavens, taught humanity knowledge, and ruled as gods. In India, the Vimanas were flying machines described in astonishing technical detail, capable of vertical takeoff, hovering, and high-speed travel. In Mesoamerica, gods descended from the sky, promised to return, and were associated with glowing craft. In ancient Egypt, hieroglyphs depict disc-shaped objects above cities. Different cultures, different languages, same story. Skeptics argue these are myths, symbolism, imagination. But Area 51 researchers allegedly noticed something troubling. The descriptions match modern encounters. Witnesses today report glowing orbs. Ancient texts describe fiery wheels. Modern pilots describe silent hovering craft. Ancient carvings depict objects floating without wings. Modern encounters involve nonverbal communication. Ancient accounts speak of visions and divine messages. The pattern never changes. Only interpretation does. Some insiders believe Area 51 intelligence analysts were tasked with comparing ancient records to modern UAP behavior. The results were classified immediately.
Why?
Because the conclusion was uncomfortable, that humanity has been encountering the same intelligence for thousands of years. Another disturbing theory emerges here, that early human civilization may have been influenced, not enslaved, not controlled, guided. Sudden leaps in knowledge appear in history, agriculture, astronomy, mathematics. Civilizations seem to rise faster than evolutionary timelines suggest. Area 51 researchers allegedly questioned whether some knowledge was taught,
Seeded.
then abandoned. Why would an advanced intelligence do this? One possibility is observation, helping a species develop just enough to watch what happens. Another possibility is darker, that Earth was never isolated, that humanity developed under supervision, and that the watchers never left. Some ancient texts describe gods withdrawing after humans became violent, corrupt, or unstable, promising to return only when humanity was ready. That language sounds ancient, but the logic is modern. Area 51 analysts allegedly viewed these stories not as religion, but as data. Humanity's earliest eyewitness reports. If this is true, then disclosure isn't revealing something new. It's restoring context, which raises an unsettling idea. What if modern governments didn't discover non-human intelligence, but rediscovered it? Area 51 may not be a beginning. It may be a continuation. And if humanity has been watched for millennia, then today's secrecy isn't about hiding aliens. It's about hiding our place in a much older story. The future scenario: contact collapse, or coexistence. Every secret points toward a future moment, a moment when secrecy fails, a moment when preparation ends, and choice begins. According to insiders, Area 51 has never been focused only on the past. Recovered craft, ancient connections, hidden biology. Those were the foundations. The real focus has always been what comes next. Inside classified think tanks and defense briefings, 3 future scenarios are allegedly discussed. Not publicly, not politically, strategically. Scenario 1: contact. This is the controlled outcome. Open, undeniable contact initiated by non-human intelligence. Not an invasion, not a threat. A presence that can no longer be hidden. Craft visible worldwide. Signals detected openly. Reality acknowledged. In this scenario, governments lose control of the narrative. Area 51 becomes irrelevant overnight. Secrecy collapses instantly. The world witnesses something beyond denial. Researchers believe this type of contact would not be aggressive, because aggression wouldn't be necessary. A civilization capable of manipulating gravity and space-time would not need weapons to dominate Earth. Their advantage would be absolute, which suggests intent beyond conquest. Some believe contact would be observational. Others believe it would be corrective. Humanity stepping toward a technological or environmental collapse. And being stopped. Not rescued. Stopped. This scenario forces humanity to unite. Or fragment. There is no middle ground. Scenario 2. Collapse. This is the scenario governments fear the most. Not alien invasion, but human reaction. Full disclosure, without preparation. Sudden confirmation of decades of lies. Evidence of advanced technology hidden while the world suffered wars, poverty, and energy crises. The public response would not be curiosity. It would be rage. Institutions would lose legitimacy. Markets would panic. Religious and ideological systems would fracture overnight. Governments would face global unrest. Area 51 would be viewed not as a mystery, but as a crime scene. In this scenario, non-human intelligence doesn't need to do anything. Human systems collapse on their own. This is why disclosure has been delayed. Not because the truth is dangerous, but because the aftermath is uncontrollable. Scenario 3. Coexistence. This is the least discussed publicly, and the most discussed privately. A gradual integration of truth. Slow normalization of non-human intelligence. Shared space. Shared reality. In this scenario, disclosure is not an event. It is a process. One already happening. Unidentified phenomena acknowledged. Language softened. Ridicule removed. Discussion normalized. The public is not told everything. Not at once, but enough. Enough to adjust. Enough to evolve. Area 51's role here is preparation. Understanding behavior. Predicting patterns. Modeling outcomes. Not defense. Diplomacy. Some insiders believe humanity is being evaluated. Not judged morally, but developmentally. Are we capable of global cooperation? Can we manage advanced technology responsibly? Can we survive contact without turning on each other? If the answer is no, contact is delayed. And this leads to the most unsettling belief held by some researchers. That disclosure is not controlled by governments at all. That humanity is being observed. That readiness is being measured. And that Area 51 exists to help us catch up. If true, then the future is not fixed. It is conditional. Collapse is possible. Contact is possible. Coexistence is possible. And the difference between them is us. Modern disclosure. Why the story is changing now. For decades, the rule was simple. Deny everything. Ridicule witnesses. Classify documents. Control the narrative. And for a long time, it worked. But something shifted. And Area 51 is no longer as invisible as it once was. In recent years, governments around the world have begun doing something unthinkable. They started admitting uncertainty, not confirming aliens, not admitting contact, but acknowledging something exists, something real, something advanced, something unknown. This wasn't accidental. It was strategic. When the U.S. Navy released footage showing unidentified objects outperforming fighter jets, officials didn't deny it. They confirmed the videos were authentic. They admitted the objects were real. And then they stopped talking. Why now? Why after decades of silence? Because secrecy is becoming impossible to maintain. Satellites cover every inch of Earth. Civilians carry high-resolution cameras everywhere. Private companies track airspace better than governments once could. The monopoly on observation is gone. And when everyone can see the sky, lying becomes harder. Another reason is pressure from within. Military pilots are no longer willing to stay silent. Intelligence officials are stepping forward. Analysts are questioning why critical information is hidden from Congress. This isn't rebellion. It's frustration. The language has changed too. UFO became UAP. Not to clarify, but to neutralize. Unidentified aerial phenomena sounds scientific. Controlled. Manageable. It removes emotion. It removes expectation. It buys time. Pentagon task forces were formed.
Reports were released.
Hearings were held. But notice what was never said. No origin. No explanation. No conclusion. Only uncertainty. This form of disclosure serves a purpose. It conditions the public. Instead of shocking humanity with sudden truth, information is released slowly,
Carefully.
gradually. The idea of non-human intelligence is normalized. So when the next step comes,
People don't panic.
they accept. Area 51 plays a quiet role in this transition, not publicly acknowledged in these discussions, but central to the data. Legacy programs, archived encounters, recovered materials. Everything modern disclosure is built upon leads back there. Another factor is geopolitical competition. Other nations are investigating the same phenomenon. China, Russia, private aerospace corporations. If one power achieves a breakthrough first, global balance shifts instantly. Secrecy is no longer just about hiding truth from civilians. It's about not falling behind. There is also fear, not of invasion, but of misunderstanding. If the phenomenon is revealed without context, humanity might react badly. Religions could fracture. Governments could lose legitimacy. Markets could collapse. Disclosure must be managed. That's the official reasoning. Critics argue something else. That secrecy protects not humanity, but those who lied. Decades of denial. Witness intimidation. Information suppression. Full disclosure would expose corruption on a historic scale. And accountability terrifies institutions more than aliens ever could. Area 51 remains closed, restricted, guarded, but its shadow is shrinking. Because once a secret is acknowledged as real, the question is no longer if it will be revealed, only how much and when. The world is being prepared, slowly, quietly, deliberately, and the final truth may be closer than anyone realizes. The final question. Are we ready to know? Every secret exists for one reason. Timing. Not truth. Not lies. Timing. For more than 70 years, Area 51 has stood as a barrier between what is known and what is admitted, between discovery and disclosure. The question has never been whether the truth exists. The question has always been, can humanity handle it? Those who defend secrecy argue something simple, that the human world is fragile, built on belief systems, power structures, and assumptions that keep billions of people functioning together. Disrupt those assumptions too quickly, and chaos follows. History supports this fear. Every major shift in understanding from heliocentrism to evolution was met with resistance, violence, and denial. And those truths were small compared to this one. Because Area 51 isn't about new information. It's about a new position in the universe. If the truth comes out fully, humanity is no longer the center of the story. We become one chapter, one species, one voice among others. And for many, that idea is terrifying. But there's another side to this, one the gatekeepers rarely discuss. What if secrecy is doing more harm than truth ever could? Generations grew up being lied to. Witnesses were mocked. Scientists were silenced. Knowledge was restricted. All in the name of protection. But protection from what? Fear or loss of control? Area 51 symbolizes a choice made without consent. A decision that humanity should remain uninformed. That ignorance was safer than understanding. That truth was too dangerous for ordinary people. But humans adapt. We always have. We adapted to realizing Earth isn't the center of the universe. We adapted to discovering we evolved from simpler life. We adapted to technologies that reshaped civilization. We didn't collapse. We changed. So maybe the real question isn't whether we're ready. Maybe it's whether those in control are ready to let go. Because once the truth is acknowledged, power shifts from secrecy to openness, from control to cooperation, from fear to curiosity. Area 51 may eventually be remembered not as a place of alien secrets, but as a test of how long truth can be delayed, a test of whether humanity trusts itself enough to face reality. And here is the quiet truth many insiders hint at. Disclosure may not be a single event, no announcement, no speech, no revelation. It may already be happening through gradual acknowledgement, through normalized discussion, through the quiet erosion of denial. By the time the truth is fully visible, it may no longer shock us. Perhaps that was always the plan, not to hide the truth forever, but to release it slowly, until the idea of non-human intelligence feels less like a threat and more like a fact. Area 51 will remain closed. Files will remain classified. Some secrets may never be confirmed officially, but confirmation may no longer matter, because the truth doesn't need permission to exist. And sooner or later, every civilization faces the moment when it realizes it is not alone. The only question left is not what the US government won't admit. The question is, when the truth finally stands in front of us, will we recognize it? Biological evidence. What was really recovered? Technology tells one story. Biology tells another. And biology is harder to explain away. According to multiple insiders, Area 51's most restricted sections were never focused on machines.
They were focused on life.
Not weapons testing, not human experimentation, but non-human biology. Whistleblowers claim that recovered craft were sometimes accompanied by biological entities, alive or deceased. These beings were not monsters, nor were they humanoids in the way science fiction portrays. They were different, smaller, fragile, engineered. Autopsy descriptions, leaked through second-hand testimonies, describe bodies with lightweight skeletal structures, enlarged cranial cavities, and organs that did not match any known Earth species. No lungs as we understand them. No digestive system designed for Earth food. No vocal cords capable of speech, which suggests something critical. These beings were not built for Earth. Some scientists believe the entities were not explorers, but operators. Biological interfaces designed to control craft. Engineered organisms rather than a natural species. That would explain why they appeared physically weak but neurologically advanced. Brains optimized for cognition, not survival. Area 51 researchers allegedly struggled most with neural tissue. The brain structure did not match mammalian patterns. Neurons were denser. Signal pathways more efficient. Information transfer happened faster than anything measured in human biology. If true, this suggests intelligence that evolved or was designed under very different conditions. Even more unsettling are claims that some biological samples were non-organic in part. Hybrid structures. A fusion of biological tissue and synthetic material. Living systems integrated with technology at the cellular level. Not implants. Integration. This blurs a line humanity hasn't crossed publicly. The line between organism and machine. Some insiders claim limited experiments were conducted to understand communication. Not interrogation. Understanding. The results were unclear. Responses weren't verbal. They were emotional impressions. Visual fragments. Concepts without language. Those exposed reported headaches, disorientation, and vivid imagery long after contact ended. Area 51 allegedly abandoned direct interaction after psychological side effects became apparent. Fear replaced curiosity. One chilling claim persists: that not all biological entities were recovered from crashes. Some were found alive, and some didn't appear hostile. If true, this raises a terrifying question. What happens to a being recovered on a planet it never intended to visit? Was it a prisoner, a pilot, or something disposable? Biological evidence forces a reality governments avoid. Because machines can be dismissed as drones. But biology implies origin, purpose, intent, and that makes secrecy far more urgent. Agreements, contact, and the shadow government theory. If non-human intelligence exists, and if it has been interacting with Earth, then secrecy alone would not be enough. Because contact changes everything. One of the most controversial claims tied to Area 51 is not about crashcraft or reverse engineering. It's about agreements. Not accidents. Not invasions. Agreements. According to multiple insiders and leaked testimonies, the U.S. government may have entered into limited contact with non-human intelligence sometime in the mid-20th century. Not publicly. Not democratically. And not with global consent. Quietly. The alleged framework was simple. Technology in exchange for access. Knowledge in exchange for secrecy. Human advancement. At a price. Supporters of this theory point to a sudden explosion of technological progress after World War II. Transistors, integrated circuits, lasers, fiber optics. Human innovation accelerated unnaturally fast. Too fast. As if someone handed us the next chapters of a book we hadn't finished reading yet. Insiders claim that only a small group of officials were aware of the full scope of these interactions. Not presidents, not Congress, but unelected authorities operating beyond public oversight. Special access programs buried so deeply they don't officially exist. This is where the idea of a shadow government emerges. Not a single secret organization, but a network, military, intelligence,
corporate,
bound together by secrecy, money, and power. Area 51 wasn't their headquarters. It was their laboratory. According to whistleblowers, contact was never casual. It was controlled,
rare,
limited, and always monitored. Communication allegedly occurred through symbolic interfaces, visual data, and mental projection rather than spoken language. No treaties, no handshakes, just exchange. The most disturbing part of these claims is not that contact occurred, but that it continues. Some insiders believe non-human intelligence has never needed permission to be here, that the agreements were never between equals. They were acknowledgments. Humans recognizing a presence they couldn't stop, negotiating limits rather than authority. If true, this would explain decades of selective disclosure. Why sightings are acknowledged but unexplained. Why evidence is released but incomplete. Why language is always careful, never confirming, never denying, just managing perception. Another theory suggests something even more unsettling, that some non-human entities don't come from outside Earth at all, but from within it. Advanced intelligences that predate humanity, living beneath oceans, underground, or in dimensions overlapping our own. Area 51 would then be less about aliens and more about neighbors we never knew existed. Some whistleblowers claim radar anomalies consistently appear near deep oceans and remote regions, not space. Craft emerging from water, objects entering mountains, vehicles disappearing underground. If true, the universe isn't empty. It's layered. Why keep this secret? Because the truth would dismantle human supremacy. It would redefine ownership of Earth. Borders would become meaningless. Nations would lose relevance. Power structures would collapse. And those in control know it. The shadow government theory persists not because it's dramatic, but because it explains behavior. Why elected officials are kept in the dark. Why military witnesses are ignored. Why disclosure happens slowly, drip by drip. Truth is being released on a schedule, not when we ask for it, but when those in control decide we're ready. Area 51 stands at the center of this process, not as a myth, but as a filter, a place where reality is examined and carefully rationed. And as pressure builds, as sightings increase, as whistleblowers multiply, the system is starting to crack. Because secrets don't die, they leak. And human intelligence. Who or what is behind the craft? Technology never exists in isolation. Every machine reflects the mind that created it, which means the most important question about Area 51 has never been how the craft work, but who made them, and why they're here. For decades, the public was encouraged to imagine extraterrestrials as simplistic creatures, small, gray beings in flying saucers from distant stars. But insiders suggest reality is far more complex and far more unsettling. According to multiple sources, the intelligence behind the craft studied at Area 51 does not fit neatly into science fiction categories. Not little green men. Not space invaders. Something else. Something older. Something more advanced. Some researchers believe these intelligences are extraterrestrial, originating from star systems far beyond our own. Advanced civilizations that mastered interstellar travel long before humans learned to fly. Others disagree. They point to the physics. The distances between stars are enormous. Even with advanced propulsion, crossing them regularly would be difficult, unless the craft aren't traveling through space, but through something else. This has led to a more disturbing theory, that the intelligence behind the phenomenon is interdimensional. Not visitors from another planet, but from another layer of reality. Beings that coexist with us, separated not by distance, but by frequency. Different dimensions. Different states of existence. Different rules. Some whistleblowers claim Area 51 researchers noticed something strange. The craft didn't always arrive from space. Many appeared suddenly, materializing within Earth's atmosphere. Others vanished without accelerating away, as if they weren't traveling, but shifting. This would explain why radar sometimes lost them instantly, why they seemed to ignore physical obstacles, why conventional tracking failed. They weren't leaving. They were slipping sideways. Another theory is even harder to accept, that these intelligences are not outsiders at all, but ancient. Older than humanity, older than civilization, possibly even older than Earth itself. Some insiders believe these beings have been observing humanity for thousands of years, guiding, influencing, watching, appearing in ancient texts as gods, angels, or sky beings, leaving symbols carved into stone, teaching knowledge, then disappearing. If that sounds unbelievable, consider this. Ancient civilizations across the world described nearly identical beings, without contact with each other. Lights in the sky. Vehicles that descended from the heavens. Non-human teachers. The story never changed. Only the language did. Area 51 researchers allegedly compared ancient records with modern encounters. The match was uncomfortable. The same craft shapes. The same behavior, the same presence, which suggests one terrifying possibility. They never left. Another classified hypothesis suggests the intelligence is not biological in the way we understand it, not flesh and blood, but something artificial, an ancient form of non-human artificial intelligence, a machine intelligence created by a civilization long gone, still operating on instructions written millions of years ago, monitoring, observing, collecting data, watching us grow. If true, then the beings associated with the craft may not even be the creators. They may be tools,
Drones.
avatars, interfaces, designed to interact with us while shielding the true intelligence behind them. Some insiders claim limited communication has occurred, not through spoken language, but through symbols, images, concepts, information transferred directly to the mind. Those who experienced it described overwhelming sensations, clarity mixed with fear, not hostility, not friendliness, indifference. The most disturbing claim is this: that the intelligence does not see humanity as equals or enemies, but as something else, a developing species, being observed, measured, tested, which raises a question governments may be desperate to avoid answering. If non-human intelligence has been monitoring Earth for centuries, what happens when they decide we're ready? Or worse, when they decide we're not? Area 51 may not exist to defend us from them. It may exist to prepare us. And if that's true, then secrecy isn't about panic. It's about timing. Because once humanity learns the truth, there's no going back. Advanced craft, technology beyond human science. If Area 51 were only a testing ground for advanced aircraft, its secrets would have surfaced long ago. Technology moves fast. People talk. Mistakes happen. But the things associated with Area 51 don't age the way human inventions do. They don't become outdated. They remain impossible. Witnesses consistently describe craft that behave as if the laws of physics simply don't apply to them. No wings, no visible engines, no exhaust, no sound, yet they accelerate faster than any missile ever built. This isn't advanced aviation. It's something else entirely. Traditional aircraft fight gravity. These craft ignore it. According to multiple insiders, the vehicles studied at Area 51 generate their own gravitational field. Instead of pushing air backward to move forward, they distort space itself, pulling their destination toward them. Movement without inertia, speed without friction, a technology so advanced that even explaining it feels theoretical. And yet, people claim they've seen it with their own eyes. One former engineer described a test vehicle lifting vertically without producing heat or noise. As it rose, the air around it shimmered, as if reality itself was bending. Then it vanished. Not flew away. Vanished. Radar couldn't track it. Visual contact was lost instantly. The engineer was told never to speak of it again. This technology explains decades of sightings. Instant acceleration. Sharp right-angle turns. Objects appearing and disappearing. Things no human pilot could survive, which suggests something critical. These craft were not designed for humans. Inside Area 51, researchers allegedly discovered that some vehicles contain no controls in the traditional sense. No steering wheels, no pedals, no switches. Instead, they appeared to respond to consciousness. Thought-driven interfaces. The craft moved as if reacting to intention rather than mechanical input. If true, this represents a fusion of technology and biology far beyond anything publicly acknowledged. It also explains why reverse engineering has been so slow. You can't copy what you don't understand. Power sources were even more baffling. According to insiders, these vehicles didn't rely on fuel. They produced energy internally, drawing power from fields that exist everywhere in the universe. Zero-point energy, vacuum energy, names scientists still debate. An infinite power source, locked behind secrecy. If released, it would collapse oil economies, energy monopolies, and global power structures overnight. And that may be the real reason it remains hidden. Some whistleblowers claim that limited success was achieved. Small breakthroughs. Not full replication, but partial understanding. Enough to inspire stealth technology. Enough to revolutionize materials science. Enough to quietly reshape modern warfare. Technology we think is cutting edge may already be decades behind what exists in classified hangars. But not all tests ended well. There are rumors of failed experiments. Craft that malfunctioned. Test pilots injured or killed. Scientists exposed to radiation-like effects with no known cause. These incidents were buried. Families were compensated quietly. Death certificates altered. Questions silenced. Progress had a price. And it was paid in secrecy. Some accounts describe underground hangars large enough to house multiple recovered craft. Entire sections of Area 51 allegedly built beneath the desert to shield sensitive experiments from satellites. Layers below layers. Truth buried beneath geology. The most unsettling claim of all is this. Not all craft were recovered from crashes. Some were allegedly acquired intact, which implies cooperation, or surrender, or something even harder to accept. If humanity is in possession of technology not made by humans, and has been studying it for decades, then Area 51 isn't about defense. It's about adaptation. Learning how to exist in a universe where we are no longer the most advanced intelligence. And that realization leads to an even more disturbing question. If these craft aren't ours, who do they belong to? Because technology is never separated from its creators. And according to insiders, they may not be as distant as we think. The whistleblowers, voices they tried to silence. Every secret survives on silence, and silence only works until someone breaks it. Area 51 has produced many rumors, but its most dangerous threat has never been foreign intelligence or civilian researchers. It has always been insiders. People who saw too much, understood too much, and eventually decided the truth mattered more than their careers or their safety. Bob Lazar was not the first. He was simply the most famous. Long before him, military officers, radar operators, pilots, and scientists had quietly attempted to report encounters that defied explanation. Objects tracked visually and on radar. Craft that outran fighter jets with ease. Vehicles that jammed weapon systems without firing a single shot. These reports didn't reach the public. They vanished into classified archives, and the people who filed them were warned. One former Air Force radar technician described tracking an object moving from 80,000 feet to sea level in less than a second. That acceleration should have destroyed any human-built machine. When he asked for clarification, he was told to sign a new non-disclosure agreement and forget what he saw. Another pilot reported being chased by a glowing object during a training mission. The object mirrored his movements perfectly, then accelerated straight up and disappeared. His report was stamped classified. He was grounded shortly afterward. Then there were the scientists. Men and women recruited for top-secret programs, often without being told what they would actually work on until they arrived. Some believed they were designing advanced propulsion systems. Others thought they were studying exotic materials. Only later did they realize the technology wasn't experimental. It was recovered, and not human. Several whistleblowers independently described the same operational structure. Extreme compartmentalization. One group studied propulsion. Another studied materials. Another studied biology. No group was allowed to speak to the others. If someone tried to connect the dots, they were removed. This wasn't just secrecy. It was intentional fragmentation of understanding. A former contractor claimed that Area 51 employees were monitored constantly. Phones tapped. Homes surveilled. Background checks repeated without notice. Even family members were scrutinized. Fear wasn't accidental. It was policy. Some whistleblowers tried going through official channels. They filed complaints. They requested oversight. They asked Congress for protection. Nothing happened. Because oversight doesn't work when the secret is buried inside unacknowledged programs. Black budgets. Special access programs. Authorities that outrank elected officials. In this system, the truth answers to no one. Others went public and paid the price. Reputations destroyed overnight. Mental health questioned. Past mistakes amplified. The strategy was simple. If you can't disprove the message, discredit the messenger. Several whistleblowers later died under unexplained circumstances. Car accidents, sudden illnesses, apparent suicides, always ruled accidental, always closed quickly, and always followed by silence. But something changed in recent years. The stigma began to crack. Highly trained military professionals started speaking openly. Navy pilots, intelligence officers, defense analysts, not anonymous sources, credentialed witnesses. They described encounters with objects that displayed no known propulsion, no wings, and no heat signatures. The Pentagon responded differently this time. They didn't deny it. They admitted it. In carefully worded statements, officials acknowledged the existence of unidentified aerial phenomena. Not aliens, not extraterrestrials, but something unknown, something advanced, something real, and something they couldn't explain. This was not disclosure, but it was a confession. Whistleblowers now claim Area 51 still plays a central role in these investigations, that recovered materials continue to be analyzed, that legacy programs remain hidden from public oversight, and most disturbing of all, that the secrecy is no longer about whether the phenomenon exists. It's about what happens next. Because if the truth comes out fully, people will ask questions. Who knew? When did they know? And why were we lied to? Questions that threaten not just careers, but institutions. The whistleblowers didn't expose Area 51 to shock the world. They did it because they believe humanity deserves the truth, even if that truth changes everything. And according to them, the most shocking part of the story hasn't even been revealed yet. Inside Area 51, Black Projects and Hidden Technology. Area 51 is not a single base. That is the first lie. It is a network of zones, layers, and compartments designed so no single human being ever understands the whole operation. Even high-ranking officials see only what they are cleared to see. And most are cleared for almost nothing. Those who worked there describe a place divided not by buildings, but by knowledge. The most visible section of Area 51 deals with what the government is willing to admit, at least partially. Black aircraft. Projects so classified they never appear in budgets, never carry official names, and never exist on paper. Planes that don't look like planes. Engines that don't sound like engines. The U-2. The State Route 71 Blackbird. The F-117 Nighthawk. All of them were once UFOs to the public. When civilians reported triangular craft gliding silently across the sky in the 1980s, they were mocked. Years later, the government revealed the stealth bomber. The pattern was clear. Deny first. Admit later. Control the timeline. But these admitted aircraft were only the surface layer. Former insiders describe deeper levels. Levels that had nothing to do with aerodynamics as we understand it. They speak of craft that did not rely on wings for lift. Craft that manipulated gravity itself. Craft that produced no heat, no exhaust, and no sonic boom, yet could move faster than anything built by humans. If true, such technology would not just redefine flight, it would redefine reality. One of the most closely guarded secrets allegedly studied at Area 51 is gravity propulsion. Not thrust, not combustion, gravity. Instead of pushing against air, these craft are said to bend space-time around themselves. They fall continuously in the direction they choose, effectively creating motion without resistance. This would explain why UFOs accelerate instantly. why they can stop midair, why they turn at impossible angles without tearing themselves apart. Human pilots couldn't survive such maneuvers, which is why many of these craft weren't designed for humans at all. Materials science was another obsession. Recovered debris from crash sites was allegedly brought to Area 51 for analysis. Metal alloys lighter than aluminum, stronger than steel, capable of repairing themselves at the molecular level. Some of the materials tested there are believed to have inspired modern breakthroughs. Fiber optics, stealth coatings, metamaterials that bend radar waves. Technology that entered civilian life decades later, after being quietly militarized first. Then there is energy, the most dangerous secret of all. Multiple whistleblowers claim Area 51 housed experimental reactors based on zero-point energy, a form of power drawn from the fabric of space itself. No fuel, no emissions, no limits. A technology like that would end oil dependency overnight, which raises an uncomfortable truth. If such energy exists, keeping it secret isn't about safety. It's about control. Area 51 insiders also speak of something darker. Biological research, not weapons testing. Biology. Reports describe labs analyzing non-human tissue, studying cellular structures that regenerate differently, brains that process information in ways no human brain can. Some claim communication attempts were made. Others say they were unnecessary, because contact had already happened. The most chilling claim suggests that Area 51 was not just studying extraterrestrial technology. It was cooperating with it. Information exchange, technology trade-offs, silent agreements made beyond public oversight. If true, this would mean governments don't just know about non-human intelligence. They negotiate with it, without consent, without disclosure, without accountability. Why such secrecy? Because the truth threatens every structure of power. If free energy exists, global economics collapse. If gravity manipulation is real, warfare becomes obsolete. If humanity is not alone, religious and philosophical systems must evolve. And those in power would rather rule a smaller truth than risk a larger one. Employees who questioned ethics were removed. Those who spoke out were discredited. Those who persisted were silenced. Some died under mysterious circumstances. Some disappeared. Some recanted under pressure. Fear became the final security system. Area 51 isn't guarded by fences. It's guarded by consequences. And yet, despite all precautions, the truth kept leaking. Because eventually someone always talks. And when they do, the story becomes even more disturbing. The final silence. What it means to be ready. Readiness is often misunderstood. Humanity imagines readiness as possession of answers, advanced technology, clear explanations, definitive proof. But true readiness looks very different. It looks like restraint. Wise silence is the final test. At the highest level of intelligence, silence is not absence. It is space. Space to choose. Space to reveal character. Space to act without instruction. If something beyond Earth wanted obedience, it would speak. If it wanted worship, it would reveal itself. Silence suggests something else entirely. Autonomy. Readiness is not about them. This is the most humbling truth hidden beneath Area 51. Readiness has nothing to do with extraterrestrials. It has everything to do with us. A species ready for contact is one that does not need it. The paradox of acceptance. The moment humanity stops demanding answers, it becomes capable of receiving them. Fear-driven curiosity seeks certainty. Mature curiosity tolerates ambiguity. That distinction defines civilizations. What a ready civilization looks like. Not perfect, but aligned. Power balanced by ethics. Knowledge matched with responsibility. Unity without uniformity. Progress without erasure. Mistakes still happen, but extinction is no longer an option. Why Area 51 still exists. Not to hide craft, not to guard bodies, but to manage uncertainty, to slow revelation until stability is possible, to prevent truth from arriving faster than wisdom. Secrecy, in this sense, is not deception. It is containment of impact, the final form of disclosure. There may never be an announcement, no official confirmation, no undeniable artifact. Instead, humanity may simply know, through shared understanding, through calm recognition, through the quiet realization that we are part of something larger, and always were. What happens after readiness? Possibly nothing. And that may be the point. Contact may not be a reward. It may be irrelevant. A mature civilization does not seek validation from the unknown. It becomes interesting to it. The most important shift, when humanity stops asking, "Are we alone?" and starts asking, "What kind of neighbors would we be?" That question changes everything. The final silence. If silence continues, it does not mean failure. It means the test is ongoing. If silence ends, it will not feel like revelation. It will feel like recognition. Area 51